at the end of the day, Gabe, I guess my concern is with what you're saying. I think you are holding up the ideal that I agree with, and I think Andrew agrees with, from what I'm understanding from this conversation. But the reality is, we currently live in a situation where we live in the total state. So the question is, our ideals are more conservative and sometimes even libertarian economically, ideals that we hold are really oftentimes for a more, it's going to sound awful to say it, but it's for a more educated voter. The more simple-minded voter is going to say, what can this person give me in the now? They're not going to think about the long-term implications. So the question is, we have to figure out how we can get to a point where we can actually get some points on the board and start taking some power back, so that eventually we can reverse to the ideals. And I think your response would maybe be that the church can sort of fill the gap through discipleship. But the thing that I'm noticing is that that is true. The church should fill that gap with discipleship. But that's going to take, 10,000 men, but God's already whittled our troops down to 300. So what can we do with 300? Because 300 might be able to be a organized minority that can sort of do a, for lack of a better term, Hail Mary pass. Whereas, if we had 10,000 men, our strategy would be completely different. If we had 10 years, our strategy could be completely different. I think I share Andrew's concern that we're at the end of the run.
Well, one of my central arguments in this is that a lot of the solutions that Andrew would be for would actually do more damage in the long run. There might be some, and it only feeds that short-term thinking that you just referenced. And discipleship is not a stopgap. Discipleship is the call of the church. And,
right.
Andrew's been in Moscow and Moscow. And I said earlier in this conversation that, Andrew's mentioned that it'd take, 300 years. He said some sort of number of long-term, take 300 years to really solve this problem to do discipleship. And you come to Moscow and it's actually, no, it's probably about 50 years. But discipleship, you're seeing in our town. So we're in a town of about 20,000 people. And when Doug started this whole thing, Grandpa Jim, when he started this whole thing, was in about the 70s. And Doug became a pastor, I think, in like 75, 76, something like that. And here we are, 2024, fast forward 2024. And we now make up about 2,000 people in this town out of 20,000. And some of those 20,000 include college students who don't vote in town. So we're about 10% of the voting block. And if you just give that another 20 years, liberals aren't having kids in town. If they do have kids, it's maybe one, maybe two kids. And then those kids grow up and don't go to college in town because it's not cool to be around their parents. Our kids are loving it here. Our kids, we have, I should know the numbers to this. We probably have, let's say, 800 kids under the age of 18 in our community. So out of those 2,000 people, a lot of them can't vote yet because they aren't 18. Well, it takes 2,500 to 3,500 votes to win the mayor's seat here in town. So we're getting close to the tipping point. The liberals don't even understand what's going on. That it's just a number. It's just a math problem at this point. If the church was faithful in Boise, Minneapolis, all these other towns, it would just be 40 years before they take over the voting block. And so the actual discipleship is the fastest way to do this, as opposed to if you give Christians all these socialistic incentives and endeavors, you're actually going to crimp that process and create longer term problems that now you have to unwind under the conservatives playing inside the Machiavellian power structures. So discipleship is actually the short run and the long run solution in all this. And Lord willing, in Idaho, I'm praying for this, and we're laboring towards this. And I know Andrew is laboring towards this with his kids and his church in Minnesota and his church in Tennessee. That looks like he's going to start. That's how you win. And so if we buy into this, their Machiavellian play and try to create incentives that might in the short run look like They're helping Christian families. In the long run, it's only going to exacerbate the problem.
I grant that point. That's a good. I mean, it's same strategy, that I'm following, and all really all of our friends are following. But the issue is, right, without practicing politics, without being in the nitty gritty, right, the Machiavellianism, as you call it, Gabe, right? There's nothing that's going to stop them from depositing 10,000 Bomalians in Moscow, or 200,000 in the state of Idaho, right? Right. They take power, and all of our designs, our long-term plans of what we want to do, are for naught if we don't engage in the political in this way. They take power, and they can outnumber us like that, right? It takes us 20, 40, 60, 80 years to have those numbers. They can have them overnight.
Right, but your tax structure will incentivize the Muslim family with 5 wives and 50 kids.
Yeah, not if JD Vance and Donald Trump become president and kick them all out. And like that, I mean, I think that is the central pivotal issue, is immigration, because this is how they get power. And right, without our side doing the things they need to acquire power, to both, A, prevent that, and B, roll it back, send these people home. Right, the plans that we have, we're not going to succeed in them. Right, it doesn't matter how many kids we have, how many kids we disciple, raise to be faithful. Right, they're just going to bring more of them here, and we have to win.